What's going on, everyone? So the Lakers obviously waived Matt Ryan, and the big question is, why did they do it now, right? And I keep going through this. Well, maybe they're going to bring in another free agent, something I talked about in a video yesterday. We know that they're working out some type of trade. I've even had people throw out the possibility of like, oh, well, maybe they just didn't want his contract to be guaranteed, but they didn't have to worry about that till January 10th. Yes, they're going on this road trip. So maybe they didn't want to bring him on this road trip, but they would be back before the 15th when they are supposedly working out trades and trying to, improve the team and improve the roster. So why just waive Matt Ryan now when he's a player that you may be able to use, right? I mean, he hit a big, game-tying shot to send the game in overtime against the Pelicans. So what if you're in a situation, say tonight against the Bucks, and you need a three-point shooter, right? It'd be nice to have a guy like Matt Ryan who, yes, he's inconsistent at times. Yes, he doesn't play defense, but at least he's a guy that can knock it down. He's a guy that can hit it in a big moment, such as, the final seconds of a game to send it into overtime. I just think he'd be a valuable asset right now, at least until you're done and clear, until you're ready to pull off the trade. Now, obviously, the Lakers are working on what appears to be multiple trades based on reports. There's three options is what was reported, that they're going to go either the Westbrook route, where they can recoup several players. They're going to go the Kendrick Nunn, Patrick Beverley route, recoup, say, one or two players, or they go the third option, which is they trade all three of these guys and they get back essentially basically a whole roster rehaul, where they could get back four, maybe even five guys and then some. So working out like a Spurs deal and some type of, maybe a Detroit deal, something like that. And I definitely want to explore different trade possibilities, especially as we get closer to the 15th. Hopefully they're not just waiting around. Hopefully Rob Pelinka's actually in the process of trying to work these deals out. So come the 15th, we can get a deal done. I'm not saying that we're going to get a deal on the 15th, but hopefully within, a few days. We're not waiting until, the 25th. And it's like, it's been 10 days since that deadline, right? So, and hopefully in the meantime, the Lakers can kind of weather the storm. But one sort of curiosity idea that comes to mind, and it ties into Matt Ryan. So the issue is, say they do a trade, right? If you do a Russ trade that's like a 3-for-1, then waiving Matt Ryan makes a lot of sense, right? Because you need that roster spot, and you're likely going to have to throw in. So say you do, let's say you do the Spurs deal, right? And you get Jakob Poeltl, Josh Richardson, Doug McDermott, just using it as an example, right? For Russell Westbrook. So now you have, say, Josh Richardson in Russell Westbrook's spot. You have, Doug McDermott in, say, a Matt Ryan spot. Well, maybe you add Damian Jones, and then that way you can get a, Jakob Poeltl in Damian Jones' spot, right? So boom, easy, clean, smooth transition. You don't have to figure and try to work something out or get rid of somebody or buy somebody out or do anything like that to free up that roster spot. That's the only way I see that really making sense, because if you do a Patrick Beverley and Kendrick Nunn trade, very likely you're either doing a 2 and 3-for-1. So you're doing Pat Bev, Kendrick Nunn, and a Damian Jones for, say, a Terry Rozier or a Buddy Hield. Again, just examples, right? So now you actually have a roster spot you need to fill. So waiving Matt Ryan didn't make sense, at least at this point, because you need to carry 14 players, right? I mean, granted, they could just go bring up one of their guys. There's options there, but why? What's the point? You might as well have waited for Matt Ryan. Even if you do, say, the Spurs deal for Jakob Poeltl and Josh Richardson for Kendrick Nunn and Patrick Beverley, right? You do 2-for-2 swap. Still, you have an open roster spot. So what are you going to do? You're going to get a free agent unless you're doing a 2-for-1 deal. So what if, and again, just a thought, I don't know this for certain, but what if they are doing, say, the Pacers deal, or maybe even the Spurs deal for the giant trade exception, right? Maybe the Pacers are willing to come down, right? If the Pacers, because the big thing is the Lakers don't want to give up both firsts in this deal. Maybe the Pacers are willing to take a first and, maybe a pick swap or a first and couple seconds rather than both first round picks That way the Lakers have, Kendrick Nunn and Patrick Beverley and Damian Jones, especially Damian Jones at that point. You might as well move off of him because you got Miles Turner now. Maybe that's something you could do. And I know that this is like the favorable trade. This is the trade that many people want to see the Lakers do. Miles Turner, Buddy Hield. I'm not very big on it. I mean, I wouldn't be mad if they did it. Like, it's not one of those deals where I'm like, Lakers just messed up. Like, no, I mean, if they did it, I do think that they make us better. I don't know how much better. But if we could also keep one of those firsts, and then maybe go do another deal, say we could do a Pistons deal. Like, that would be nice, right? Like, that would be great. Take a first, take a first, Patrick Beverley, Kendrick Nunn, and like maybe a Damian Jones, and go like get a couple pieces from the Pistons. Like, that could be solid. And now you worked out two, like, that might be the best deal out of all of them, right? You get Buddy Hield, Miles Turner. Say you could get Bojan Bogdanovic and like Sadiq Bey. Maybe it's a bit of a pipe dream, but hey, it's not unrealistic to think, especially if the Pacers would be willing to drop their asking price slightly. I don't know if they would, but they could be looking at it as like, hey, Buddy Hield and Miles Turner have kind of regressed, which they have. They've had they were extremely hot in the beginning of the season, extremely hot, and they've kind of cooled off since. And so maybe they're looking at it as like, hey, why not get something for Miles Turner? Miles Turner's probably leaving. He's gone. We move off of Buddy Hield's contract. We kind of go get back into the tank race like we originally wanted to do. Because look, Indiana, yes, they've been solid. They've absolutely been solid this year, but they're not winning a championship. They're not competing. Like, Indiana didn't have intentions going in this year and being a middle of the pack team, play-in team, maybe, at best the 6th seed, which I don't think they're going to be even the 6th seed. I think they're a play-in team, but that wasn't their goal. That wasn't their intentions. Like, let's start the season and go. Like, that's why they were willing to trade them before media day, because they had the intentions of tanking, but they wanted to get what they wanted to get. Well, maybe, as the season progresses, maybe they're like, hey, let's do a deal. Although you wouldn't have to wait for this deal. That's the only other thing. Even the Spurs deal is like let's say they did Josh Richardson and Doug McDermott for Russell Westbrook, and then they got that like $22 million trade exception, right? Like, that could work. And then maybe they use the trade exception to Indiana. Maybe Indiana would be willing to take a trade exception because that's more useful than just buying out Russell Westbrook to them. So maybe they have something in the works there. But even then, that deal doesn't have to be waited until the 15th. Unless they're trying to work something out. Maybe they're working out a multi-team deal. We do know that the Lakers have tried with several teams to work out like 3 and even 4-team deals, at least based on reports. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe they are waiting on like the Detroit Pistons. Like maybe what if Indiana wants Sadiq Bey? What if they're like, hey, tell you what, go get Sadiq Bey and we'll cut back on a price. Like, we'll cut back on our price a little bit because we could get a young, wing type player, and maybe they could get Bojan Bogdanovic, Buddy Hield, and Miles Turner. That could be a lot more beneficial for the Lakers. I still think we need sizable wings, but you could do worse in that scenario. But I'm curious as to why. Because the timing doesn't make sense. And I'm not the only one to bring this up. I mean, there's been lots of like media people that have been like, why did the Lakers do this now? Like, even if they did want to like not take him to the road trip, like, yeah, they saved money. They saved like $2 million. But like, is that something that is absolutely necessary? Are you like, I would imagine you do that for a purpose. You do that for a reason rather than just to have that open roster spot, unless they just really want to save that $2 million. Matt Ryan's not really playing right now. Okay. But hopefully it doesn't end up biting them in the butt. You know what I mean? Like, hopefully, against the Bucks today, it's like, man, we could really use Matt Ryan. We could really use a player that could come in and just knock down a 3 in this spot. But nonetheless, I do think that they're going to make the Bev Nunn deal first. I think that'll be the first domino to fall, unless a team like Indiana drops their asking price. Like, if the Pacers come to the Lakers and they go, hey, we'll do, 1 first and 2 seconds for Buddy Hield and Miles Turner, I think the Lakers would jump on that immediately. Whether I am huge on the deal or not, I do think the Lakers would do, because this is a deal that they were going to do before media day. Like, this was a deal that was considered done. The Lakers just backed out, at the final hour essentially, and so they decided not to do that, and they wanted to see like what does this team look like for another season under Coach Ham, which I do understand. But I do think like this is a deal that they like, that they are favorable for, and any deal you get or make is basically going to be your team, right? Because you're not going to make a trade for a bunch of players that you're just going to let leave at the end of the season. So no matter whatever deals they make, they're going to be doing deals for guys that are going to help them now and the future. And luckily, you have Patrick Beverley, Kendrick Nunn, you have Buddy Hield and Miles Turner, or you have Russell Westbrook, so you could go get a Buddy Hield and Miles Turner, and then go get some other pieces. Maybe you could get Bojan Bogdanovic and get some pieces to kind of help. And now you have like LeBron, Davis, Bojan, Buddy, and Turner for the next, 3 to 4 years. Like that's a pretty good foundation. Is it a contender? I don't know. We'll see how they all play together. We'll see how they all mesh together. You would have 5 guys essentially that could get you 20 on any given night. Like that's a pretty good position to be in. At least this year, you'd still have Walker, you'd still have Reeves, you'd still have stuff like that. And I know a lot of people don't want the Lakers to make a move that jeopardizes Lonnie Walker, but if we're being honest, like we're probably not retaining Lonnie Walker. There is some team that is watching Lonnie Walker, seeing that he is 23 years old and going, man, let's throw some money at that guy. Especially with the league we're in, where teams just love to overpay for people. Like Lonnie Walker is playing himself out of a contract that we can afford, or that's even worth it. You know what I mean? Like if somebody offers him 18 to 20 million, he's not worth that right now. Maybe one day, well, maybe in 3-4 years he will be right? But right now, he's not a 20 million a year player. And for those that are like, there's no way he's going to get, hey, look at what Jalen Brunson got on like a 6-game sample size. Like literally, like he had like a 6-game run. Lonnie Walker's been doing this for the entire season. You don't think that there's some team that's like the Knicks or something that's going, he's 23 years old, he's got good size, good length, can get to the basket, he's shooting better, he's only going to improve, he's only going to get better, he's guarding the best player that the Lakers play every night. Like there's teams that are paying attention to Lonnie Walker and going, man, like he's a guy that could be a part of our franchise for a while, especially some of these younger teams that have all this cap space and stuff. Like I wouldn't be shocked at all if a team ended up paying him for the long haul, especially after seeing this performance. So that's the thing too. He's the fourth option, so I guarantee you there's teams that are looking at him and going, man, like, this kid, like, what is he if he's our like first or second option? He's got to easily be a 20-plus point scorer game, right? It's just something to keep in mind. But hopefully, my point with this is that hopefully the Lakers have an idea, have something structured. I just think it's curious, because why waive Matt Ryan to free up the roster spot? Because the report from Shams was that they freed up the roster spot ahead of the December 15th deadline for a trade, right? So if that's why, then I imagine they already have a trade in mind. And if you're doing a Bev Nunn for, just again, use an example, Bojan and Sadiq Bey, that's an even swap. So you still have that open roster spot. So like, what are you doing? You bringing in like a Hassan Whiteside? You bringing in like a Mo Harkless? Maybe that's what they're doing. But if they're moving Russ and you trade Russ, then you're very likely getting back at least 2 players, a 2-for-1 swap or a 3-for-1 swap. So now that makes more sense. So I imagine that Russell Westbrook is maybe out the door, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Again, we'll explore some different trade ideas I really want to dive into and all that stuff. But again, as always, love to hear your thoughts and opinions. Let me know. Good, bad, ugly, somewhere in between, down in the comment section below.